everyone! Pag-usapan naman po natin isa ito sa mga questions din na madalas, no? Actually, even sa law office, sa experience ko na 7 years on my, entering my 8th year of experience, isa sa mga pinakamadalas talagang kinoconsult or kumbaga very curious din yung iba, even if di nag-consult, nagtatanong talaga patungkol dun sa tinatawag nilang psychological incapacity. Okay, so kadalasan, yung mga nagtatanong nito, of course, sila yung mga inside a marriage na hindi na nag-work out and they're thinking of nullifying their marriage. So, yun, i-clarify lang natin, walang divorce sa Philippines. So, as we speak, wala po tayong divorce. And very specific ang grounds natin for the nullity of the marriage. First, you have yung nullity of marriage kasi, you go into the essential requisites of a marriage. Ibig sabihin, yung mga pinaka-importante at mga dapat na nag-e-exist at nandoon para masabing valid ang marriage. So yun, nandiyan yung example po, yung legal age, yung naibigay mo yung consent mo, and there is a marriage license and a celebration of the marriage. Kumbaga, meron doon a person who is authorized to conduct or celebrate a marriage at nandun dalawang spouses, a man and a woman, tapos there are 2 witnesses there. So yung mga po, those are the essential requisites of a marriage. Yung iba, nai-invalidate yung kanilang marriage kasi either yung isa is still a minor at the time of the marriage, they just faked it. Yung mga ganun po. Others naman, because bigamous yung marriage nila. So, pangatlong marriage na pala ng isang spouse. So, yun po. Pero yung tinatawag nilang psychological incapacity, dito papasok yung isa sa ground na talagang very specific in the family code. Although, it's very hard to prove. Okay, when I say very hard to prove, hindi mo lang pwedeng sabihin, psychological incapacitated yung either or both the spouses, so nullify marriage. Hindi po, it doesn't work that way. Usually, a psychologist, psychiatrist is hired to really conduct a psychological test, of course, and then maglalabas siya ng psychological report. And if ang finding is either or both of the spouses are psychologically incapacitated to be married or spouses to each other, then that is a strong evidence to really show that there is psychological incapacity. But of course, you don't just rely on that. You have to look again at the totality of everything, the testimony of the parties, the testimony of the witness, and kumbaga the gist, not the gist, the core. If you ask me, it's the core of the story. You really have to relay it in such a way that you will really show na there is a basis or a ground to nullify your marriage based on psychological incapacity. That's why also, apart from the parties and the witnesses, nagte-testify din po yung psychologist or psychiatrist who conducted the psychological test, no? Because of course, these are medical and scientific metrics that need an expert to testify in court. So dapat expert talaga yun. So even for us lawyers, when of course we read the psychological report, but the things that written in there, hindi naman linya yun. It's the linya ng psychologist or psychiatrist. So we're just on the receiving end of it. So the explanation or the expertise on the matter would really rely on them. So ayun po. And then of course you have to go into a full-blown trial. When I say a full-blown trial, you really have to file the petition together with the judicial affidavits, together with all the exhibits, the evidences needed. You undergo collusion hearing, pre-trial, the trial proper, and then formally offer your evidences. So again, when I say it's very hard to prove, you really have to show. We do have like precedents in the past ng mga marriages nullified by psychological incapacity, and we even have parang guidelines of what to check kung pasok ba sa psychological incapacity. There were cases in the past na ganon, but still, it's a case-to-case basis. It's circumstantial, and not because this certain situation work for certain spouses at the nullify marriage, that doesn't necessarily mean that it will work for you, because again, you have to look at the totality of the story, of the evidences. So pero some of the dyan, yung usual na papasok is, let's say one of the spouses is madaming bisyo, lisenggo, nagsusugal, babaero, may masamang bisyo, walang pakialam sa asawa or sa pamilya, nananakit ng asawa, or ng or yung hindi tumitira sa bahay, hindi na nagpapakita, kung ano-anong kumbaga yung to sum it up, yun yung mga bagay-bagay na when you look at it, yung obligations of a spouse, hindi niya nako-comply. So, doon papasok yun. And these things are, siya yung mga parang, yung mga grabe talaga. At the same time, parang hindi na siya curable, in a sense, dun sa psychological report na na kumbaga hindi na siya nakukuha sa usapan or sa so talagang it's innate on the person, and at the same time nag-exist na to be prior, as in bago the marriage, nag-exist na siya, nag-manifest lang siguro during the marriage. So ayun po, that's the psychological incapacity. But siguro when you hear psychological incapacity, baka may iba kayong connotation of that. When you say psychological incapacity, it when it comes to nullity of marriage, it just pertains relative to the actual marriage na nina-nullify. Okay? Ibig sabihin, psychologically incapacitated to be the spouse of that specific person. But doesn't necessarily mean psychologically incapacitated to be a spouse of anyone. So, ayun po. Anyway, yun lang naman ang focus. Na-nullify mo yung specific marriage. So, it will only focus on that and yung incapacity of the spouse, one or both spouses, to comply with the obligations as a husband and wife. So, ayun po. Again, I hope natulungan ko kayo to explain it a bit more from how you know about psychological incapacity. And still, like what I always tell you, if you want to have specific answers talaga to your specific situation, best to consult a lawyer in your area, lawyer you're comfortable with, tell your story, and then let the lawyer assess if there is a basis or a ground. Then you move from that. Okay? Have a nice day and always take care.